Mama, that show coming on, you like?
I don't like that bullshit.
He already started.
I don't know why the hell you telling me.
Dennis Sperling. That show, mama, you know what I'm talking about.
Fuck him.
Mama, that go, that man, he just talk a lot of shit. He be up late at night, tuning into all his hits. See my grandmama hate him, and my mama and my titty getting mad, posting comments like we watching real TV. Mama, that go, that man, yelling, fuck that nigga, what? He successful attorney on the tube, be turning up. We be turning up, we turning up, yeah. We be turning up, yeah, turning up. It's that real spit, like some barbershop talk. Except it's real black men that be walking the fucking walk. Intelligent, well versed, and sometimes we might curse while we cuss a lot. Just like these lovely ladies fuss a lot. Switch it up, tell these pussy niggas gotta pick it up. Move along, me and you ain't brothers, not the womb I'm on. Cross-examination on a nigga in the chat room. All the trolls with the disrespect, we in the back room. Huffing and you sucking up the air like a vacuum. Daddy disappeared, told your baby I'll be back soon. I just represent us cause the system can't afford it. I'm your homie, I'm your brother, sometimes a court appointed. Anointed, know you hate it, but I give you fair chosen. Just like Jesus in the house of God, kicking chairs over. Suit and tie soldier, get the cold shoulder. The hate and you talking, not a fucking stain on me. Watch your dame, homie, I got that change on me. Black rich, I don't give a shit, bet your dame want me. Mama, that go, that man, he just talk a lot of shit. He be up late at night, tuning into all his hits. See my grandmama hate him.
That's my motherfucking business. You ain't got a goddamn thing to do with it.
And my mama and my titty getting mad, posting comments like we watching real TV. Mama, that go, that man, he talk a lot of shit. He be up late at night, tuning into all his hits. See my grandmama hate him, and my mama and my titty getting mad, posting comments like we watching real TV. Mama, that go, that man. Mama, that go, that man. Mama, that go, that man. Yeah. Mama, that go, that man.
Special broadcast. Shout out to all the Black Muslims. Shout out to the members of the Nation of Islam. Shout out to all the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We are going to have a very, very interesting discussion. Those of you guys who've read my books, you know that since I was 7 years old, I have been listening to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And whether you agree with the minister or not, you know that he has been an advocate for Black people here in the United States. He picked up the mantle back in the 1970s. And, you know, he's been speaking on behalf of what they refer to as the lost found. As you guys know, I am a Christian, Southern Baptist, and, you know, nevertheless, I've learned many things listening to very learned discussions and speeches by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. One of the reasons that I decided not to be a gangbanger, the reason I decided not to, how should I say, fully join the local set was because of some of the messages that I heard from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. One of the reasons that I decided not to sell dope, even though many of the young men around me were selling drugs, specifically crack cocaine is because I did not want to contribute to the genocide of my African American brothers and sisters. Somebody said my audio is all over the place. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I gotta get this microphone popping. All right. How about now? Can you guys hear me now? I'm sorry about that. I forgot to pull the mic down, baby. But anyway, welcome back to the broadcast. Like I said, I'm Dennis Sperling. Is that better? That should be much better. I apologize to you all for that. In preparation for these broadcasts, I try to get everything, but sometimes you miss the little stuff. Nevertheless, we're going to talk about a lawsuit that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan filed against the Anti-Defamation League. And the interesting thing about it, lawsuit, it reads like Uncle Louis is telling. Okay, he is telling on all the things that have happened to him and the Nation of Islam going all the way back to the 1930s. Okay, this was just filed on October 21st, 2023. Here's the crazy thing is, right? We know that on October 7th, Israel was attacked by Gaza. Since that time period, there have been an uprising here in the United States of people supporting Palestine. And so what I'm looking at is the political climate is one that favors someone who would be filing a lawsuit against the Anti-Defamation League. Because remember, whatever your position on Hamas and Israel, and of course, I'll let you guys know mine. My interests are what's in the best interest of the United States. Okay. My interests are what's in the best interest of the country that I live in. And so if Israel is an ally to the United States and keeping Israel healthy and strong and intact, it secures the safety of the United States where my family lives. That's really my only concern. I've explained to you all that neither the Arabs nor the Jewish people, or should I say both the Arabs and the Jewish people, had their hand in the African slave trade. So as a group of people, those of us who are descended from Africans, we could look at both groups of people with a jaundiced eye. Now, I'm not talking about on an individual basis. I'm not talking about your teacher, your favorite instructor. I'm talking about group to group. I'm talking about on an individual basis. We as a group do not owe anybody anything. As the great teacher and historian, Dr. John Henry Clark said, we don't have any friends. And so, I look at it for what it is. Well, okay, if I'm not necessarily aligned to either side, what's in the best interest? What's in my overall best interest? And what's in my overall best interest is what's in the best interest of America. Because I live here. If I lived in Colombia, then I would say, well, what's in the best interest of Colombia? It's not really a decision that I'm making based on, what is right and what is wrong. I'm only making a decision on what's right for me and what's right for us. So, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But here's the thing. As I said earlier, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has filed a lawsuit asking for $5 billion. Somebody type $5 billion in the chat room. I actually have a copy of the lawsuit here, and I've taken time to painstakingly review this lawsuit, all 76 pages of it. And it is quite interesting, to say the least. And when I say it's quite interesting, I mean, my goodness, they put some time into this. I've actually checked out the lawyers. There are 3 lawyers involved in this case. And we'll scroll to the bottom and I'll let you see. All these gentlemen are this brother here, Michael Muhammad. He's been practicing over 20 years. Abdul Arif Muhammad. He's been practicing over 20 years. This guy's actually here in Texas. And this gentleman, Saeed Alim Muhammad. So you have over 20 years, closer to 30. So you have some very experienced attorneys who are litigating this case. Now, the basic allegations, and you can see it here, the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York, Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. The complaint, it alleges violations of constitutionally protected rights, defamation, and is asking for declaratory relief. Yeah, $5 billion. Somebody type $5 billion. Now here's the wild stuff, right? I've learned so much about the history of the ADL just from reading this brief. If what the minister and his lawyers are saying is true, and those three lawyers are bound to make true statements in these lawsuits. They can't just say stuff and make it up. And the fact that they have, I believe, 700 pages worth of exhibits says a lot. Okay. But either way, before I get started, good, you guys, my name is Dennis Sperling. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in multiple states, including New York, Illinois, Louisiana, and Texas. I enjoy doing this podcast, but for the most part, I'm a civil litigation attorney focused on personal injury law. So if you've been in a wreck, I'll get you a check. If you get hit from the back, I can help you with that. If you get in a crash, let me get you some cash. Hallelujah. All right. But anyway, the Cash App is here. The PayPal is here. I got the mood music playing. And if you all at some point feel like you've learned something from what I'm saying, then at that point, I ask you to contribute. If I make you, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to earn my keep. I'm here to teach you something that you didn't know. I'm here to do, I'm here to get paid for my time. And so at the point where you feel like I've done that, go ahead and contribute. But either way, let's go ahead and get this thing going. I want you guys to, first of all, understand that the basis of the lawsuit is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And for those of you guys who came in late, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is suing the Anti-Defamation League, which is, and the lawsuit was filed on October 16th, 2023, in the midst of all this stuff that's going on with Israel and Hamas. This lawsuit was filed. And as you see, the parties to this litigation are the Minister Louis Farrakhan as a national representative of the Nation of Islam and the Nation of Islam itself. They are suing the Anti-Defamation League for defamation, ironically. And the Anti-Defamation League is a group of, it's an organization designed to help protect Jewish people from having their name or their religion disparaged. He's named some of the officers, Jonathan Gill, Greenblatt. He's also named the Simon Westall Center and some of their folks, some of their officers. So let's do this. Let's just briefly go through this. And this is going to be a while. I'm going to tell y'all, you're going to learn a lot. Some of y'all didn't know, you can sue somebody for calling you a racist. So the next time you call one of these Karens a racist, you got to be careful, because they literally can file a lawsuit against you for that. And a lot of people didn't know that. So, he goes over, the minister in this introduction, his lawyers basically talk about the past 40 years, these folks, the ADL have been targeting me, trying to make me be a racist. My mission is basically to, enlighten and revive, the lost people, Black American people here in the United States, those who were in chattel slavery for 310 years. And then the oppression that we had to suffer for the past 150, being Jim Crow, and then of course the chattel, the system of the criminal justice system. He expresses that he's a Muslim. They talk about jurisdiction. I found this to be important because this case is brought because of federal question. Now, when I first saw this, I'm like, hold on, federal question? You're not suing a federal actor. You're not suing the federal government. Why is this a federal question? You know, I didn't get that at first until I kept reading. And then also 1983, which is typical civil rights claims where your rights have been deprived. And it's also been brought in under diversity because all the parties are different jurisdictions. So they've alleged 3 different reasons why they should be in court. Here's the other thing. He's asked for 4.8 billion. Somebody type, let's just go ahead and round up, $5 billion. $5 billion. Right. So where is it filed? It's filed in basically Manhattan, Southern District of New York. This explains who the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is. Now, the one thing I spotted here is that they don't indicate that he's a citizen of Chicago, Illinois. They indicate that he resides in Chicago, Illinois. As I told you guys before, and I'll make this a little bigger, and I'll try and see if I can get Brian Ponder, who's an attorney I work with who specializes in defamation lawsuits. This is always an error, okay? So if you reside somewhere, that does not necessarily mean that's your citizenship. That doesn't mean you're domiciled. You could have plenty of residences, okay? So this would be a procedural error looking at it. And so it may bring into question, well, where's he at? Where's his citizenship? So if a judge wanted to ask the court, you know, there's an exception that could be filed for that. And that would cause for them to have to amend the lawsuit. The Nation of Islam for corporate and legal purposes is registered as Muhammad's Holy Temple of Islam Incorporated. It's a nonprofit corporation in the state of Illinois, headquartered, okay? All right, so it's founded in Illinois and it's headquartered, which means its principal place of business is Illinois. And so that means its citizenship is of Illinois, which means it's clearly stated that it's from, it's an Illinois corporation, nonprofit corporate. Hold on, jelly jar break. Sometimes when I talk too fast, I lose my breath. Next up, who are the defendants? I mean, think about this. The irony of suing the Anti-Defamation League, an organization designed to keep one minority group from being defamed, is being sued for defaming another minority group, a religious organization, i.e. the Nation of Islam. So I found that ironic. But anyway, they allege that this principal place of business is New York. It is organized. Now, the thing you got to understand about the law, it says that a business entity can have 2 domiciles. It could be a citizenship of 2 places. The place where it was organized, in other words, a place where the documents were filed, and also the place where its principal place of business is. So here, the ADL was formed in the District of Columbia, which is basically Washington, D.C. So that's going to be its citizenship. And then also its principal place of business is New York. So ideally, you could have filed this lawsuit in either one of those places. Now, Jonathan Grimblatt, he is apparently the national director and CEO of the ADL. And upon information, belief resides in New York. Again, resides. Is he a citizen of New York? I don't know. Either way, you know, that's kind of ticky-tacky. But the other thing I noticed is whether or not the court is going to have personal jurisdiction. Now, what if it said he's the CEO, but he resides in, I don't know, Ohio? Well, there'll be a question as to whether or not the court in New York would have it. And I know you guys are bored, but we're going to warm up in a minute. I got to lay this foundation because I know that there are going to be a lot of very intelligent lawyers and litigators looking at this, and I want this to be able to hold water, so I'm trying to be as thorough as possible. The other organization is the Simon Wiesenthal Center. It is organized under the laws of California. That's one citizenship. And its principal place of business is Los Angeles. So it's a citizen of both California, and it has an office in New York, which means that court has jurisdiction because they have an office there. So that's how they can drag all these people who are all over the country into this one court in Manhattan. Here's another one, Abraham Cooper. Now, Associate Dean, Director of Global Social Action for SWC, and resides in Los Angeles. My question would be, how does the court even have personal jurisdiction over him? You're in New York. You can't force me to litigate a case in New York. But I'm assuming what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, this person is an officer because he's the director of Global Social Action Agenda for SWC, which is assigned. They're going to say, well, that's where he works. And so we're going to have jurisdiction over him because of that. So that's just the basic stuff. Now, the other thing I was wondering is, what is the statute of limitations? If they've been doing mean stuff to you and saying you're a racist for 40 years, you really only have like 2 years in the state of New York to file in many of these states to file a lawsuit. After that, the statute of limitations run. But as I began to read, I recognized that this has been ongoing and continuous. Oftentimes, let's say you get cancer and you get re-exposed and re-exposed and re-exposed, it becomes ongoing and continuous. So that's how they were able to get up there. But we'll get to that. Here he talks about the founding of the Nation of Islam, how Nasrallah Muhammad came to them on July 1st, 1930 in Detroit, Michigan, and spoke to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he educated him and taught him, and he stayed for 3 years and 4 months, and then he left, and then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad took over, and they were going over some of their lore and explaining to. You might think, well, why are they doing all that in the legal document? Well, they have to establish that they're a religious organization, and so this is their religion, okay, which is smart when you look at the case law. Now, there's already a case on the book. Somebody typed Muhammad Ali. Somebody typed Muhammad Ali in the chat room. There's already a case that went up to the Supreme Court on the books that, where Muhammad Ali was already tried a case, and they already said, yeah, this is a religion. I'll talk about that a little bit later. The bottom line, this is going through the background. Now, here's the crazy part. All right. What they're alleging here is that in the 44 years, and I want y'all to listen, in the 44 years, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his followers were hindered by the U.S. government through the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the ADL. And when you begin to read this, and he gives plenty of examples about how the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, would provide information. Somebody typed snitching. They would basically spy on the Nation of Islam, and then they would provide information to the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And I'm like, hold on, are they going where I think they're going? Like, they even talk about how there were instances where information that was provided to the FBI, surveillance, illegal surveillance is what they call it, calls for like people to get arrested. Here, 82 followers of the Nation of Islam were arrested based on illegal surveillance obtained by the defendant, the Anti-Defamation League. I'm like, why is this private organization working with the federal government? I mean, I'm just saying. And here's the crazy part about it. The crazy part about it is that they actually have all these documents, 700 pages worth of documents that they produce, showing that the FBI shout out to my man Logic before motion. Good evening, Unc, in the chat. This is very significant. I think it is. This is a very significant topic, and like some of the stuff you're going to see about this later is going to trip. Now, you're going to trip out, right? The goal of and it has a lot to do with what's going on right now. You know what I mean? So just hang in there. Again, like you say, I support Israel, and the reason I support Israel is because that benefits America. But as far as this particular organization, all I'm doing is going through what this complaint says. And this complaint, right, indicates that the FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, right, purposely was working with, the Anti-Defamation League to try to falsely label the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a hate teacher and his followers as a cult. That's kind of what they're saying, you see? And on top of that, the ADL, what they're saying is the ADL was working as an arm of the FBI. You see what I'm saying? That's what this is saying. And when I saw that, I'm like, wow, okay, I get it. So anyway, we skip forward. We're on page 13. We skip forward to 1983. Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke at the anniversary of the 1963 March on Washington. He spoke for about 6 minutes. He was receiving all his praise. This is what was in the post. He said, a speech by Black Muslim leader hailed as best on the March in Washington. I remember these years, and you guys may not know, but Reverend Jesse Jackson, of the Rainbow Coalition, he informed Minister Farrakhan that he was going to be running for president. And he asked Farrakhan if he would give him his support. And Farrakhan said, well, I need to go talk to the board in Chicago and see if we can do that. Now, keep in mind that after the Honorable Elijah Muhammad passed away, there was some differences of opinion in the Nation of Islam, and it kind of broke up. And about two years afterwards, Minister Farrakhan had to rebuild the Nation of Islam to what it was, because it kind of had splintered off into different groups. But either way, Jesse Jackson was saying things like he wanted a fair and balanced foreign policy regarding the state of Israel and Palestine. And so Israel really didn't like, the Jewish people here really didn't like that. Hey, you should be on our side, blah, 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 whatever. And so they were kind of, it was kind of some issues between Jesse Jackson. And so when Farrakhan picked him up, he inherited his enemies, right? And so there was a group called Jews Against Jackson, and they published an attack ad against Reverend Jesse Jackson. Well, the Minister Louis Farrakhan, being who he was, he said, hey, basically, and this is what they said about Reverend Jesse Jackson. They said, he's a danger to American Jews, to the state of Israel, and to America. And the attack ended, Jesse Jackson is no good for Jews, for Israel, America. Stop him. Ruin Jesse now. Okay, because remember, Jesse's slogan was "Run, Jesse, run." And so what ended up happening was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, hey, well, let's go talk to these people and figure out what's going on. Jesse Jackson didn't have Secret Service, so the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan assigned some members of the Fruit of Islam to protect the man day and night. Okay. Nevertheless, that's when the beef started. Jesse Jackson, Farrakhan sticking up for Jesse Jackson, and that's it. He inherited his enemies. That's why you got to be, if you're gonna be down with somebody, you got to be all the way down with it. But this is what this is basically saying. So the Jews Against Jackson, they said some things, and it was not. It was, and so Minister Farrakhan basically addressed them on February 25th, 1984. And he said, hey, when you attack him, you attack millions that are lining up with him. In other words, you can't just fight and pick on Jesse Jackson. You're going to be fighting all of us. And so 2 days later, on about February 27th, 1994, after Minister Farrakhan requested a dialogue with him, right? Things start going downhill real bad. And I'm reading this straight out of here. This Jewish columnist, Village Voice, repeated the ADL sentiment, and they call Minister Farrakhan a black Hitler. Okay? And that's a horrible thing to say by it. The inference is that, you want to, hurt these people because of their religion. Hitler did some horrible things. I mean, the man, he unalived 6 million Jewish people, in Eastern and Western Europe. He rounded them up. He put them on trains. The Third Reich also, they did horrible. I think it's 6 million. I believe that's the number. And so, to call Minister Louis Farrakhan a black Hitler, that's definitely implying that he's a racist. And so moving forward, this is where we're coming from, right? Now, keep in mind, the ADL has been working with the FBI according to these documents. So we already got 30 years of history between these two organizations. And now you're calling this man a black Hitler. So as we move forward, and you guys, and they're saying that, he called, what they're saying is, one of the Jewish leaders is saying that he referred to Judaism as a dirty religion, and Minister Farrakhan said he never said that. So that they're saying that was a flat out lie. He said at no point during the lecture did Minister Farrakhan, and they're referring to a lecture that took place on June 25th, 1984. Okay. And there, these folks in the ADL and whatnot, they're saying he referred to Judaism as a dirty religion, and he's saying at no point did I say that. That's what it's saying in here. At no point during the lecture did the Minister Farrakhan say that Judaism is a gutter religion or Judaism is a dirty religion. Okay, so that what they're saying is that's just a flat out lie. You're saying I'm a racist, and now you're just making up stuff saying that I'm anti this religion. And so, this is what this lawsuit. Now, look, we're just talking about lawsuits here. So I'm quoting what's in here for everybody to see. And so this is what he's saying, and so now it's just, and then after that you had the United States Senate, okay? The United States Senate issued a Senate resolution, and they voted 95-0, right? 95-0, condemning Minister Farrakhan based on false allegations. He had said Judaism was a gutter religion, and that the creation of Israel was an outlaw act, to which he responded, I don't care what the 2 cents, I don't care 2 cents about the United States. That's a big deal. You got the whole United States Senate denouncing you and basically calling you a racist, okay, for the world to see. You see, now put this in context of damages, okay? When I say damages, if you're a business and you get this label of being a racist, or your figurehead is then people are not going to do business with you. You're going to miss out on money. So look at it in this context, okay? Now, it continues, okay? In July 3rd, 1984, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan held a press conference to respond to the false allegations by the defendant, ADL, and their Jewish groups. And he basically said, that's not what I said. This is what I said. I would never say that. And so things just kind of escalate, and now he's saying he was giving a speech. He was giving a speech, and there were people outside on September 14, 1985, Jewish members of the ADL. They paraded outside the entrance of the LA Forum chatting, who do we want Farrakhan? How do we want him dead? So this was they were agitated. I mean, it was a heck of a situation. You see what I mean? Like, they were really going in. And so Minister Farrakhan's numerous efforts to dialogue with the false accusers. So he tried to speak with them apparently on numerous occasions over the years to try to clarify what was said, and it just really didn't happen. It just really didn't happen. And you can kind of go, deeper into it. But for the most part, you get the point. All right. Now, the thing I found interesting, he talks about the ADL, the purpose, and purports to be a civil rights organization. However, demonstrate that it's an un-American organization. These are allegations, un-American organization that's woven itself into the fabric of both the United States government in general and to local governments, with in particular to advance the interests that are un-American to the extent that tramples on the constitutional rights of the American citizens. Shout out to my man Cody Marshall. We also need to follow suit. Here's the thing, that's a lot of hyperbole. Basically, it's saying it's worked its way into becoming an extension of the United States government. Okay, and now we go back to the 1940s and some of that history. They said in a secret 1942 Anti-Defamation League, B'nai B'rith memo entitled Temple of Islam Infiltration states that the Negro employed by us quite instrumental in an FBI raid. In other words, the ADL hired, according to this, and this is in their exhibits, right? They got an exhibit attached to this. They're saying the ADL the Nation of Islam and Farrakhan are alleging in this lawsuit on page 20 that the ADL hired a Negro, hired a black person to infiltrate the Nation of Islam, right? To get information, which resulted in 82 members of the NOI being arrested. It wasn't the FBI, it was the ADL. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, damn, y'all playing spy games, y'all sending snitches into the folds of the Nation of Islam. That's what the federal government is supposed to do, right? You sending basically, you got espionage going on, private citizens doing the government's job, okay? And so, this sort of stuff went on, and for instance, May 2017, the defendant delivered, for instance, on May 8th, 2017, in a speech delivered to the defendant ADL entitled "The FBI and the ADL Working Together to Fight Hate," James Comey, former director of the FBI while he was still serving as director, said the FBI was not only working with the ADL, right, but we love the ADL. So now you got their agent, i.e. the FBI, admitting that they work with the ADL. It's like you're showing that there's a nexus, there's a relationship, there's a direct link, a nexus. And here's the quote: "This public pronouncement of the director of the FBI establishes a direct link and nexus between the FBI, a branch of the Justice Department of the U.S., and the defendant ADL." So, basically there's a link. And so now you have a situation where you have, is this a state actor? In other words, is this enough? Is there enough of a connection between this private party and the government, and what this private party does for the government, i.e. work that the government should do, police work, apparently, to give rise to the fact that, hey, you're infringing on my rights? Because if at the point where you become connected to the government, you're now bound by the same restrictions that the government is bound by. And so, now we're looking at all the different things they say about Minister Farrakhan. They got from 1994, all these ADL special reports, all these things, which a couple of years, all the way up to 2000, just different prints, different things that are being said about him from the ADL. And here he compares something that was said by someone in the LA Times who's basically saying that Jewish people run Hollywood. And they said, well, why isn't that anti-Semitic? In other words, they're showing that Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam received desperate treatment from the ADL, because it's not that he's anti-Semitic, it's just that they're targeting him and trying to pitch him as basically trying to paint him as being a racist so that people won't do business with him and these sort of things. So, and we could just keep scrolling, and I'll keep scrolling and kind of briefly. So he's going over all the different things that are said, all the different, how they've said Jimmy Carter, Bishop Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela. They said all these people are anti-Semitic. Andrew Young, Ice Cube, Deshaun Jackson, newscaster Mark Lamont Hill. How when these people say something against the interest of Israel, Dave Chappelle, they get canceled. They get labeled an anti-Semite. So he's showing to the court that they have a history of doing this. You see what I mean? And none of these people hate Jewish people. None of these people have done these cruel things that the Nazis did to them. None of them have called these people. And they have all this documentation which is purported to support these allegations, which I find interesting. So this is kind of more of the same. It kind of goes over what the Simon Wiesenthal Center did. And so we can kind of, it's kind of more the same stuff. You're saying I'm a racist. I'm not a racist. It affects me. And now in this part, Minister Farrakhan goes a long way into explaining how he respects the Jewish religion. He has Jewish friends. He learned to play violin from a Jewish person, all these different things, that we give credit to the Jewish people for the diet that they have, the dietary laws is good, basically giving them their propers. You understand what I'm saying? Even inviting them to some Nation of Islam conventions and such and meetings. Basically, I don't see, I wouldn't have drafted this lawsuit like this, but I get why it's being done this way because it's going to be part of American history. It's going to be here forever. But the other thing is, and this is where it gets interesting, okay? At some point, they're trying to define what anti-Semitic is. When you say stuff like Jews have too much power, Jews are disloyal, Jews are greedy, this is anti-Semitic stuff known to be denying the Holocaust. And these are all some of his students who've been labeled anti-Semitic, okay? And so, I'm just kind of going over this real brief. The lawsuit, anybody who wants to pull it, the case is up here. You can pull it off of Pacer. But they're kind of just laying the foundation. And so now he's explaining how many law enforcement officers are trained, special agents are trained. So you got this private organization, the ADL, training 100,000 law enforcement officers. They're demonstrating a nexus. Private police force, FBI, they're demonstrating there's a nexus between the FBI and a nexus between the ADL. That's what this lawsuit is explaining, and with the knowledge of both of these entities. So I just find it interesting. Now, here's the thing. This is where the allegations come in. Somebody type count 1 in the chat room. Somebody type count 1 in the chat room. So in this particular juncture, basically saying his First Amendment rights were impinged upon under the color of law. And the only reason that works is because he's alleged that the ADL is a quasi-governmental actor while acting under the color of law, has been engaged in the activity of unlawfully infringing on Minister Farrakhan's constitutional right to peaceably assemble or associate with others who shares common interests. Wow. Can you imagine if the LAPD drafted the 18th Street gangsters and basically had them acting as a police force? So now you can sue them if they shoot somebody or do something bad. You can sue them just like they're a cop. So they're out having it out with some other gangsters, and now you can treat them like they're the police. You see? Because they're performing a governmental action. And so that's basically what they're saying. They're saying the ADL is acting like the FBI. This is a quasi-governmental actor, and the things they're doing, the police wouldn't be able to do. The FBI shouldn't do. So because you're doing that, you're violating my freedom of speech. You see, you can't hire a proxy and then do the things that the government is not allowed to do and get away with it. So that's why they're getting sued for that. I found that very interesting, and there's some precedent for that. They're saying you're infringing upon their right to exercise their religion. You're out here stalking us and planting plants and snitches around us and getting us arrested. It's a trip. Shout out to my man, Absalom. Thank you so much. I know this is boring. I know it's boring, but I think it's important. It's not going to get any less boring. I'm just going to say it's going to get more boring before it gets, it's going to be more boring. I'm just saying it's going to be real boring, but I think it's important. And I didn't see anybody cover this. This broadcast has been out. I mean, this has been out since the 16th. That's almost 9 days. And we still talking about, what some B-list actor's wife is saying and why she should get back with him. That ain't important. This is important, but whatever. That's interesting, but this is probably more important. In addition, what are they doing? This is what they're saying that they're doing. As part of the close nexus and symbiotic relationship with the federal government, conducts investigations on matter. It maintains our instances of anti-Semitism in addition to performing investigative functions for the FBI and sharing such information with the FBI. Defendant ADL, upon information, police also performs enforcement measures regarding these matters. So they basically saying the ADL is the police. You see what I'm saying? That's what they're saying. They're saying this. The Nation of Islam once had an account on a streaming video platform named Vimeo. The Nation of Islam on said platform exercised an aspect of its religion by proselytizing through the spreading of the teachings of Elijah Muhammad on Vimeo platform. Upon information and belief, the defendant ADL, as part of their relationship with the FBI, tracked and investigated the Vimeo platform since the Nation of Islam was using it to spread teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Defendant ADL determined the messages presented through Vimeo were anti-Semitic and thereafter used their authority and sanctioning by the FBI to cause Vimeo to cancel the Nation of Islam, cancel their contract. I mean, that's what ain't me. I'm not saying, I'm looking at what's on here. This is what they're saying. Like they saying that the ADL is the popo. Okay. So, and here's another thing. They're saying that they impeded on the free speech of the Nation of Islam as an organization, not only Farrakhan, but Nation of Islam. And that's something too. Can you defame? Can you impede on the rights of a business? Can you defame a corporation? Yeah. So these are all questions that have been answered, and they put it together, right? So what's the defamation, right? And that's kind of defamation, trade, business, mission. Basically, he's saying that they falsely labeled minister as a virulent anti-Semitic. Basically, they're saying he's a racist. That's the crux of saying he's anti-Semitic. This is the crux of the lawsuit. That's a defamatory statement. Every statement you make about somebody is not. If I call you a big-headed fool, that's not necessarily defamatory. It's crass, it's rude, but it's not necessarily defamatory. But calling somebody a racist, and we're gonna get to it in a minute, because I want to dig deep into this. But that's basically what he's saying. He's literally suing them for all these years of calling him a racist and calling him anti-Semitic, basically, for 4 decades. Okay, so you got 4 decades worth of stuff leading right up to right now, and look at the time that it's being filed. What is the jury going to look like? You got a whole bunch of people who are not really happy with Israel right now, and that is what's going to be on the jury pool. So, I mean, shout out to Jerome. This would be an opportune time to file de facto defamation. In other words, defamation per se. Here, you don't even have to prove damages. He said, because of you labeling me an anti-Semitic, you're impeding me from doing my job, and that is liberation of Black people and poor people around the world, because you're making people think I'm anti-Semitic. He also brings up interesting instances involving Kyrie Irving, a football player. Somebody typed Kyrie Irving in the chat room, Deshaun Jackson, Dwight Howard, retired ball player, Mark Lamont. No one on this list said a negative word about Jews or Judaism, and their high crime or misdemeanor was to say something the defendants did not like, nor that did not comport with their self-interest. So he said basically what he's saying is, if you say something they don't like, it doesn't matter if it's anti-Semitic. If they don't like it, they're going to call it anti-Semitic, lie and say or defame you and say you're anti-Semitic just to shut you up. That's basically what they're saying. Okay? I got some video footage I want to share with y'all that I thought was very interesting right here on the internet. Now, for those of you who are wondering whether or not a private organization can be treated like an extension of the government, the U.S. Supreme Court has identified multiple tests to determine whether a private corporation acted under the color of law as the direct links. And so the whole point of this is that, yeah, you can. Okay, that's the whole point. The point is, yeah, if you're doing business, yeah, like train track, railroads, utility companies, probably Facebook, and some of these other online communication systems. Yeah, that's why, I don't know if you guys remember, but me and the good judge had Judge Joe Brown briefly discuss how we plan on suing Facebook because it's become a quasi-governmental agency and it's acting as a utility because it fosters communication and all sorts of other stuff, what the government is supposed to do, okay? So here's what they asked for. Specifically, and they're saying how they get all this money. This is the type of money they're saying that this group gets from the government. The total amount defendant ADL secured from the government. Listen how much money they got. Shoot, look at that. $1.5 billion. All right. To help, fight, anti-Semitism. You see what I mean? So it's there. It's all there. $1.5 billion. And so he said, you're connected. So what are they looking for? This is what he's looking for. Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam respectfully request that this court enter a judgment against the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, SWC, and Abraham Cooper, award damages punitive otherwise in the amount of $4.8 billion, resulting from the defendant's violation of Minister Farrakhan and Nation of Islam's First Amendment rights pursuant to the U.S. Constitution, violation of Minister and Nation of Islam's First Amendment rights pursuant to 42 U.S.C. 1983 civil rights, malicious defamation, and they had to allege malicious, and I'll explain why, because he's a public figure, against Minister Farrakhan and Nation of Islam, and declare that the false use of the term anti-Semite and all of its variations or derivatives constitute a de facto defamation per se. I want you to hear what that just said, because this is important. I want y'all to hear that. Declare that the false use of the term anti-Semitic and all of its variations and or derivatives constitute a de facto, which means as a matter of fact, defamation, okay? Declare that the defendant ADL is at minimum a quasi-governmental actor and grant plaintiffs damages any additional relief the court finds appropriate. Now, as to this, some of y'all may not believe that these folks are just labeling everybody anti-Semitic, because that's what he's saying. And I didn't believe it either. And then, and then I went to the YouTube page where this particular subject is addressed, okay? And they actually quoted in here, and I just like, holy crap. And this lady here, and I really don't want to play it too loud, but I think I could probably let this part play, and you'll be able to read what this woman says, okay? Listen to this. Okay, listen to this. Basically, fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use. Let me try to do it. Let me try and do it. Fair use. It's a trick. We always use it. She's basically saying it's a trick. We always use it. We say you're anti-Semitic, then we bring out the Holocaust. when you criticize, if you criticize Israel, basically gonna say you're anti-Semitic. So that's basically it. They cite this in this brief. You know, they cite this in this brief. I don't want to mess up my. I don't want to get the copyright strike. But that's basically what they say. They said it's right there in the brief. So you know, it's a strategy, and you see it playing out right now, don't you? Don't you see it playing out right now? Anybody who criticizes Israel's response to Hamas, even though, you know, it seems to me it's not necessarily an act of war, but it's more of a criminal act, right? Because you had individuals, not the army. You had individuals doing it. So it seems like a law enforcement matter. Nevertheless, they're over there doing a lot of things to those folks. And I just, and if you criticize them for it, it's considered anti-Semitic, right? And so it seems we see the same, and we see it play out with all these black actors. You say something about someone, Jewish people, and then is deemed anti. So it looks like a tactic. And this woman just admitted it. And Minister Farrakhan is saying, hey, y'all gonna stop doing that. Jolly job break. He's saying, y'all gonna stop doing that. Y'all just saying we anti-Semitic because we say something you don't like. Either way, let's go ahead and get this thing cracking. So, as I said earlier, Minister Farrakhan is suing the Anti-Defamation League and its officers for defamation and some other things, in violation of his rights. The lawsuit was filed on October 16, 2023. The Nation of Islam leader, Louis Farrakhan, he turned 90 recently, initiated this $4.8 billion lawsuit against the ADL in Manhattan federal court. In summary, he's asserting that the ADL has unjustly tarnished his reputation and violated his First Amendment rights by incorrectly branding him as an anti-Semite, contributing to a false narrative about his character and beliefs. The lawsuit is aiming to prevent the Anti-Defamation League from using terms like anti-Semite and anti-Semitism to defame him and his organization, right? Asserting it infringes on their constitutional rights. And in the court submissions, in the court submissions and the filings, he denies any hostility towards Jewish individuals. And you saw he went a long way into highlighting his admiration for Jewish people, his admiration for certain Jewish figures, and his personal relationship with his Jewish teachers, and describing his conflict with the ADL as a battle of biblical proportions. And he has backed his legal action with 787 pages of documentation, right? I hate to be that law clerk who has to look through that. And that's intended to support his claim. In his lawsuit, Minister Farrakhan accused the ADL of being an un-American organization, alleging that it has infiltrated both the U.S. government and local governments to promote its interests that violate the Constitution of both him and American citizen. And he traces the origins of this conflict with the ADL all the way back to 1984, when he began to express support for presidential candidate Jesse Jackson. Following that, Jackson used a racial slur. I believe Mr. J, he did say something racial. That was Jesse Jackson, though. Okay. But anyway, Farrakhan claims that the Anti-Defamation League is primary force in wrongly branding various celebrities as anti-Semitic. This is what he's saying, right? And he named the names, okay? Stating that this pattern began with himself due to his staunch defense of Reverend Jackson. Imagine that. You out there defending your homeboy, and then now you got smoke from the people that he had smoke for. Your homie done tucked off and ran. So Minister Farrakhan has been taking heat for this since 1984 because of what Jesse Jackson did. That's a trip. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of like a trip when you really think about it. But he emphasizes in his legal documents that the label of anti-Semitic attached to him by the ATL is just false and damaging. And basically he's saying it's cost them money, it's cost them opportunities. They've had contracts canceled. So there's real life damages to that. Now, of course, they reached out to the ADL to see if they had comments, and they spoke with Jonathan Greenblatt, who's actually a defendant, and who generally, they said, we generally don't comment on litigation that but they're saying, they said they plan on dismissing this lawsuit because it's baseless, asserting that Farrakhan's own public statements and rhetoric clearly mark him as anti-Semitic. Okay. Now, what we're going to do at this point is we're about to go to school. All right. You guys are going to go to school. I want y'all to learn something. I want you guys to learn something. We are an hour in already. I know it's going to take a while, but I'm going to roll through this as best I can. I want y'all to learn something. Okay. I don't want to do a cash call. When you learn something, you learn something. Go ahead and contribute to the Cash App. And if you're over there on the Blizzard King side, contribute to the super chat, because I want to roll through this and I will get all this done within an hour or 2 hours. Okay. So libel, somebody say defamation, somebody say slander. Okay. Defamation is the general term for when something is either said or written about somebody and it's false. Okay. Libel, somebody type libel. Okay. Like label, right? You know how you got a label, you put a label on somebody. Label is a publication. Libel, that's the way you remember. Think about libel, label. Label is when you put a sticker on somebody. It's got to be in writing for people to read it. Label is a publication in words, photos, pictures, or symbols of false statements of fact that harm another person's reputation. Libel is a form of defamation. Okay, defamation is the overarching concept. Libel is one of those things under. Slander is when you speak. Okay, slander is when you speak a version of defamation. You use your mouth like a snake and your slanderous tongue, your slithery tongue. Think about it like that. That's the way to remember. Libel is written, slander is spoken. Okay, reprinting or rebroadcasting a libelous statement made by someone else, such as a quote or a letter to an editor, can also be subject you to publication or libel lawsuit. Okay. Now, if something is true, that's an absolute bar. You cannot, that's never a basis for libel. Now, the 4 elements to establish for defamation is it's got to be a publication. Now, publication can also be a conversation. You publicized it. Identification, we know generally who you're talking about. There's some harm and there's some fault. Now, for each of the 4 elements, you got to prove this. For example, you got to prove them, right? For example, even if a story you have written meets publication harm and fault elements, a libel claim will still fail if you not identify the claimant. In other words, such and such got the alphabet, blah, 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 but you never name the name. Well, okay, we don't know who that person is. You understand what I'm saying? Now, a statement is published if it is communicated to someone other than the person whom the statement is about, right? If I go tell you you're a filthy piece of crap, that's one thing, right? If I go tell someone else you're a filthy piece of crap, that's me publishing it to someone else, right? It's almost okay to lie to somebody to their face, but you can't lie to them behind their back. Isn't that something? That's a trip, right? Identification is a state. You got to identify the person. It's self-explanatory. A person, if it is shown that it is or concerning that person, that's it, right? Now, what if you disguise the identity, right? What is that? Where you successfully omit or alter a subject's identity and they cannot successfully sue you for libel. You see, but you got to be careful with that because subject's identity has been distinguished enough so that no one can reasonably make an identification. That's one thing. And the distinguished subject does not resemble some third party who would have costs. Remember, somebody type Brickgate in the chat room. All right. If I type Brick Lady in the chat room, if I type Oyster Girl in the chat room, if I type Cheesecake Lady in the chat room, and I say something like, oh yeah, that person has a horrible disease, any one of them, that actually, you guys know who that is. And so her or their identity is known. Okay. And so that may open me up for a defamation suit. You see? So her identity is not quite hidden because you know who that person is. Okay, just think about it. If I say Ocho Cinco robbed the bank, you're like, Ocho Cinco? You mean Chad? You see what I mean? You know who it is, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, group libel, right? Group libel. Individuals can be defamed. They can be held liable. You can libel a group, and groups of people cannot. Okay, individuals can, groups of people can. However, there's an exception. If I say the basketball team, which is 5 or 10 people, all of them boys over there was stealing and robbing, that is a group under 25. And so that might go to their reputation. See, here's what you got to understand. The key question is whether or not the statement about a group can be reasonably interpreted to refer to a specific individual in the group. While there is no hard rule, several courts have indicated that individual members of a group larger than 25 will have a difficult time proving that they have suffered individual harm. On the other hand, individuals in a smaller group may be able to claim that their reputation has been damaged. For example, let's give a generic statement. The tennis team is being investigated for substance abuse. Could subject the publication to a libel suit if the team consists of less than 25 people. You see what I'm saying? So that's something you need to consider. Corporation entity libel, right? Can we sue a corporation? Yeah, corporations and other entities, including private school and religious organization, they can be defamed. You see, they can be defamed. And one of the requirements is, like individuals, their reputations affect their ability to conduct their affairs in their community. You see? And we understand that the NOI has already been deemed a religious organization. And that's, as I said before, Cassius Clay versus the United States, a 1971 case where a person who you all know as Muhammad Ali, rest in peace, he objected to being drafted to the Vietnam War as a conscientious objector. And, basically they recognize that, his religious base is as substantial as all the previous cases that we've had in here. So we know that the NOI is an entity that's recognized as a religion. And so at that point, okay, there we go. It's already on the books. Now, people suing for libel who are public figures. Now, this is the one thing that I had to kind of meditate on, right? Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a public figure, and he has been one for 40, 50 years. And, there's a higher level of fault that needs to be proved other than the ordinary people. And let me give you some categories, okay? You got a public official, right? And then you got public figures, right? In order for a public official like a mayor or a governor to prove defamation, they have to prove malice. Actual malice requires that the person suing prove that the challenged statement was published by those who either knew it was false or were reckless in verifying its accuracy, okay? So, if you say something like the governor of Colorado stole $100 million from, a kitten rehabilitation farm. Oh my God, how scandalous, right? But you got to prove malice. You can't just you can't just be a mistake because he's a public person, right? Now, the Supreme Court has said that the public official is one who is, at very least, has or appears to the public to have a substantial responsibility for control over a governmental affair. So a mayor, a governor, city councilman, those are public officials. Now, what about a public figure? Because see, we got a lot of folks here on YouTube, and they're celebrities, right? They have a pervasive fame of notoriety, and like Kevin Samuels, rest in peace. He was known, his name was a household name. He became a public figure. Okay, so there's a higher burden to prove that somebody's committed malice against you. So what about limited purpose public figure? What about somebody who's voluntarily assumed to take the lead role in a particular public controversy? You're out there leading the front line. You're on the front line for the, for the union. Okay, you're a limited public figure, right? You may be able to go back into being a private figure, but at this point, you get hit with it. Now, the standard private person is pretty much everyone else. And in most states, private people, all you got to prove is negligence, right? Or a lie, and if you're innocent, you don't even have to prove negligence. The fact that it's a lie is enough. Now, what are the defenses to liability? You consent, you signed off on the document, and you agreed to appear. Your other defense is truth. If you're the defendant and they say, you defamed me. No, what we said about you is true. So the question is Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan anti-Semitic? How do we prove that's truth or not? And that's the question, because see, there's also something called opinion. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Opinion versus facts. Opinion versus facts. Statements of pure opinion, they can't be libelous. If somebody said, Uncle D, you're a fat fuck, that's their opinion. You see? If somebody said, let's find a victim in here. We got Ice Princess. Ice Princess, you're a fat fuck and you stole $600 worth of groceries out of the grocery store. Okay, that's libel. Okay, that's libel right there. Okay, and I'll explain why. Simply saying your opinion and publishing that is not going to be good enough. Pure opinions, by their very nature, they can't be proven true or false. You see, you can't prove them true or false, right? Now, the question that we have here today: is it defamatory to falsely call someone a racist? Right? Is that the question? Now, there's been a lot of cases about this, because there's a lot of people. Back in the day, people didn't give a damn about being called racist, but let's go over a couple of them right now. Statements indicating that a plaintiff is racist are clearly expressions of opinion, okay, that cannot be proven as verifiably true or false. Your opinion that somebody is racist is not necessarily defamation. It's not necessarily defamation. Many courts have faced this issue of defamation claims based on accusations of bigotry or racism, and have held the statements to be non-actionable statements of opinion. Somebody's typed opinion in the chat room. There's a case called Stevens v. Tillman out of the 7th Circuit back in 1988, and the court held that neither general statements charging a person with being racist, unfair, unjust, nor references to general discriminatory treatment without more constitute provable false assertions of fact. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, got it. You're a racist prosecutor that only puts black people in jail. Okay, that might be defamatory because that's something we can prove. You see what I'm saying? Okay, think about that. There's another case, Standing Calm on Discipline v. Wagman. That's the 9th Circuit, 1995, holding that calling a judge anti-Semitic was not actionable. So you got a Jewish guy in there, and the judge said something mean to him, and the Jewish defendant said, "You're anti-Semitic," and the judge sued him for defamation. And the court said, "Judge, that's not actionable. That's his opinion." Okay? Accusations that a plaintiff hated Jews is non-actionable. Right? So look at this. Think about this, right? You got people saying you're anti-Semitic, you hate Jews. Okay, well, you can't sue them. But it's not true. And look at the effect it's done to me. You see the uphill battle that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam have in their defamation suit. I'm just saying, it's a lot of pages. It reads well. I see a couple of procedural issues that I would address, but for the most part, it's going to be difficult to prove that he's racist. Now, they got admissions that they use this as a tactic to put people on defense. Okay, but this is still interesting. There's another case out of New York from 1995, Covino versus Hagman, dismissing defamation claim based on the statement that plaintiff was racially insensitive. Observing an expression of opinion is not actionable as defamation, no matter how offensive or unreasonable may be, and the accusations of racism and prejudice have routinely been found to constitute non-actionable expressions of opinion. Basically what they're saying, more often than not, you being a racist or you somebody calling you racist is just doesn't rise to the level of defamation. Not slander, it's not libel. Accusations of racism based on disclosed facts, it's not actionable for defamation. That was the case Williams v. Kanamora. That was in Hawaii. Here's another case out of Ohio. So we're going all over the place. Lennon v. Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court, 2006. The appellants being called a racist was a matter of one employee's opinion, and thus is constitutionally protected speech, not subject to defamation claim. Okay. And to quote the general rationale for this position, we have to look at Judge Frank Easterbrook, and he wrote in Stevens v. Tillman, a Seventh Circuit case out of 1983, the word racism has been watered down by overuse, becoming common coin in political discourse. I mean, they use it all the time. Okay. In the case that he was referring to, Stevens versus Tillman, apparently Tillman had called Stevens a racist. And then Stevens issued a press release calling Tillman a racist, right? And also calling Tillman a bigot. So they going back and forth. You're a racist. No, you're a racist. Formerly, and this is what the judge said, formerly, a racist was a believer in the superiority of one's own race, often a supporter of slavery or segregation, or a fomenter of hatred among the race. That used to be the definition of racist. That was pretty damn bad, right? But politicians now sometimes just use the term too loose, right? Anyone, not their race, who opposes the speaker's political goals on the rationale that the speaker espouses only what's good for the jurisdiction or audience. And since one's opponent has no cause to oppose what is beneficial, the opposition must be based on race. So basically saying he's being facetious. The court was being facetious in that, oh, surely there's no other reason you could oppose what I'm saying. Has to be race, because this is good for everybody, but you're opposing it just because you're racist. Maybe not. Maybe I just don't like it. Maybe you didn't give me enough money. Yeah, I don't know. You see? But here's the thing. They also said the term has acquired intermediate meanings. The speaker may use she's a racist or he's a racist to mean she's condescending, right? You think you're better than me, right? Which must be because of race, not because I'm tall, good looking, handsome. I went to a better school. Oh, it's no, none of that. It's just because of race. And so basically they're saying it's just overused. Okay. Now here's the thing. When the word acquires a strong meaning, it becomes useful rhetoric, right? You can throw that out there. Disaster, racism, atrocity, slaughter, right? They used to say that the Native Americans slaughtered the Indians. That's a strong word, right? Because it conveys a powerful image. Now, when plantation owners held blacks in chattel slavery, right, for 100 years, right, and the governors declared segregation now, segregation forever, everybody knew who was the racist, right? You could see it. And sometimes people will use these words, right, to get emotional impact. You know how them Democrats use black people. They say, oh, that Republican is racist because they want an emotional impact. They know what they're doing, right? That's what they're doing. Okay. But again, this is a court of law that we're going to be in, not a court of language. And you cannot insist that speakers cling to your version of what you deem a word is, right? In daily life, racist is hurled around so indiscriminately, you know, it's no more than a verbal slap in the face. And I think that's what's going to end up happening. What's going to end up happening, the court is going to say, yeah, Minister Farrakhan, we get it. Racism, calling you anti-Semitic is you know, it's distasteful, especially considering you have all these folks who, you know, you like who are Jewish, and, you know, you've been to, you know, you learn to play the violin from a Jewish teacher and all that, but really it's a slap in the face and it's not actionable, right? It's just not actionable. You know, what else you got? You know, they called you a racist. They called you Black Hitler, but did they say that you know, did some horrible things like he's a Black Hitler and he did X, Y, Z, just like Hitler? They didn't say that. So there's not the defamation there. I mean, it's going to be a tough case to prove. Now, here's the thing. Are y'all with me? Let me know if you're with me. Hit the number 1 button if you're with me, baby. Hit the number 1 button if you're with me. Okay. We got a little bit more to go. And then we're going to, maybe I'll get somebody up. But let me see if I can get my good friend Brian Ponder to come through here. I'm going to send him the link, and maybe we can get him to come in here and chop out. Y'all seem to enjoy when we go back and forth about these cases. So I'll see if I can get Brian to come in here. And shout out to Deacon Salty Balls. Thank you so much, brother. Let me I'm gonna try to get Brian Ponder in here. Brian, if you're listening, I'm sending you the link to come on in and chop it up with me about this case. Brian was here yesterday, so he might be busy. I don't know. I hate to impose, but I think this would be a good time for him to come in. I'll let him know. But other than that, we'll continue with this conversation. So, you know, as it were, there are some ways, okay? There are some ways to seal the deal, meaning I prove that you defame me by calling me a racist, okay? And I'm gonna give you all these examples. See, falsely accusing someone of a specific act, right? You're racist and you fired me. Or you're racist and you prosecuted someone, or you targeted a race of people. Yeah, that person might be able to sue you. If you say you fired me because of my race and it turns out to be a lie, okay, guess what happens? That's a problem. If you're saying the prosecutor is targeting people of a certain color, he could sue you or she could sue you for libel, okay? For instance, there's a case called McElry versus Philadelphia newspaper in 1996 out of Pennsylvania. The court held that characterizing the plaintiff as having acted improperly by abusing his power as district attorney in elected office to further racism or his racist agenda and his own political aspirations, that could be actionable. So not only did you call me a racist, but you said I did something that furthered the goal of racism, okay? But the court specifically stressed that the statement did more than merely label the plaintiff a racist. The statement was actionable because it focused on what the plaintiff supposedly did that was racist, you see? Rather than just on what you believe this person is. Now, you know, it amounted to basically charging this person with misconduct in office. So it's almost as if the Nation of Islam should have said, no, you all are anti-black. You see what I'm saying? You should have sued them for being anti-black and said, you've infringed on my rights to free speech. You've infringed on my right to congregate with others. You have labeled me racist as a tactic to prevent me from being able to do my job, which is go and talk to these people and talk to these people and have these speeches. Because there was another allegation in the complaint where they had booked a reservation to have a speech in Morgan State in the auditorium, and then the ADL came and said, y'all can't do it. So it's like interference with their contract. It's like a business center. So that, I would have thrown that in there. I don't know why they didn't, but these guys, they're on it. So let me bring it home. Okay, so just so Kyle Rittenhouse, everybody was there. He's a white supremacist, right? He's a white supremacist. They say that, right? Right? That's not libel because that's understood as an opinion. You understand? Now, what if you falsely asserted that Kyle Rittenhouse had joined the KKK? That may be libelous because now there's an action that supports the opinion that he's racist. There's something that could be true or not true. How do I prove you're racist? Well, I point to the fact you joined the KKK. Well, what if I didn't join the KKK? Well, then that means that's libel. You see, are y'all following this? Is this starting to make sense? I know it's a hard concept to understand. I'm losing people in the chat room. Y'all probably bored as hell, but we're going to keep at it. Okay. Now, there's been a whole lot of cases, right? Because people are calling people racist left and right. Hold on a minute. Let me see. I got a response. I got a call from hold on a minute. So Brian Ponder should be here shortly. So the thing about it is, in the last couple years, there's been a large upswing in the number of libel claims filed based on statements that allege racism and white supremacy. You can't keep going around here calling these white men white supremacists and racists. You're gonna get sued. Responding to these allegations of racism, it can be a strategy to try to silence criticism or to seek proof of validity of one's point. You see what I'm saying? Excuse me, y'all. I'll be right back. I had to check out real quick. So some of these claims are often dismissed because the statements at issue are opinion or conclusions drawn from facts that aren't provided. Okay, so I'm a racist. Why? Why am I racist? Because you joined the KKK. Okay, that's a lie. But if you say I did and I didn't, you printed somewhere, and guess what? That's libel. I'm a racist because why? Because I only prosecute people of a certain color. Okay, well then, if you say it and it's not true, then I'm liable. But if you could just call me racist, but if you say I'm racist and then you try to come up with some supporting facts that aren't true, that's gonna be a problem. You see what I'm saying? Now here's the situation. Let's flip the script. They keep saying that Minister Farrakhan is anti-Semitic. That's their opinion. They're entitled to that. If they said he was anti-Semitic and the Nation of Islam was out there painting graffiti on synagogues and stuff like that, and it turns out they weren't, that would be libel. Okay? They're looking for some action to support that, something that you could say, yes, this happened, no, this happened. But other than that, we're just looking at opinions. All right. So, and that's why many of these claims are often dismissed because the statements at issue are opinion or conclusions drawn from facts that aren't provided. Now, not all cases involving racial accusations are dismissed, and that's what I want to talk about. First, in order to determine whether a libel claim involving racial accusation can survive, a fair share of the courts tend to evaluate who's being targeted. Who is the person? And some courts are quick to dismiss the case if the racial allegations at issue are not actually directed at or do not refer specifically to the plaintiff. And that's not the case here. We clearly see that this is being directed at the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, this anti-Semitic rhetoric. For example, when Nick Sandeman, and this is a guy, he sued a bunch of news organizations about something that happened on the National Mall in Washington. One of the claims was that he was libeled by accusations of racist behavior. But the court said, no, you just basically, they were referring to generally to what was going on out there. So that's not really you. You were out there with the people doing racist stuff, but it wasn't you. You know, you got to, who's the plaintiff? You can't really, you're not the plaintiff. It wasn't you. But other jurisdictions, and we talked about the group thing before, if it's directed to a small group and restricted to like a baseball team or a football team, and you're saying, you know, they've done something that they haven't done, you know, this called the small group exception. Now, you can't say a crowd of 100, but if it's less than 25, that's usually the number. Now, you know, we have to, and I talked about this earlier. Let's say you have a plaintiff who's not named, right? And that's not really the issue, but I'm kind of giving it because you see a lot of this happening on Facebook. George Zimmerman, he sued Buttigieg. You know, and Senator Warren. The day Trayvon's 25th birthday, the 25th, which would have been his 25th birthday. Trayvon Martin would have been 20. They made these tweets. Trayvon Martin would have been 25 today. How many 25th birthdays have been stolen from us by white supremacy, gun violence, prejudice, and fear? That's what Buttigieg said. Buttigieg, whatever his name is. And then Warren, the Senator Warren said, my heart goes out to Sabrina Fulton and Trayvon's family and friends. He should still be with us today. We need to end gun violence and racism. And we need to build a world where our children, especially black boys, can grow up and set free. So Zimmerman filed suit against them, right? Alleging that Warren and Buttigieg defamed him and alleged that the statements in both tweets referred to him as he is well known for killing Martin. But we ain't know. He wasn't named. And the court said on a motion to dismiss the plaintiff's allegations, we'll take them as true. Okay, yeah, we'll believe you for now, but there's no identification that was you. But when they file a motion for summary judgment, we probably gonna dismiss it. That's an outlier. Okay, that's not usually what happens. Okay, you know, there was another case where Zimmerman sued the family of Trayvon Martin and their publisher, and the court dismissed the case, finding that the statements at issue were their opinion, and that was that Zimmerman is a racist. And the counsel for the publisher argued that whether someone is racist, particularly when racism can be something that that people aren't even aware of, can't be proven true or false. Okay, there's no facts that support it. You see, he joined the KKK, he was a skinhead, he was a Nazi, these sort of things, right? So this is where we're at. You know, there's some core challenges in libel cases, and the thing you also got to understand is people's perception of what's racist and what's not is different. You know, what's anti-Semitic for one person may not be anti-Semitic for another person. What's anti-black for one person may not be anti-black for what's another person. You see? Now, plaintiffs generally, they seek vindication of their viewpoint, right? They're not racist, right? By definition, having a viewpoint is not a fact, right? It can be concluded. But anyway, we got my good friend, Brian Ponder. I see him down here queuing up. Brian, are you in there? Let's see, I think you're coming in, Brian. Oh, we lost Brian for a minute. But we'll let Brian get on in here. But here's the thing. In instances where a plaintiff is a public figure, you got to prove actual malice. Okay, you can't just say they lied. So even if Minister Farrakhan is able to prove that they meant it and it was racist, right? They got to prove malice, you know, and that's a higher burden. Okay. And there may not be any, you know, or there may be, you know, the fact that I would say that because he was targeted for the past 40 years and they picked on some people who said things and others who didn't, saying the same things, which all of which could be considered anti-Semitic, it's almost like he was targeted. Okay. Let's do this. I know we got Brian Ponder in here. You guys, I don't want to take a break. I need you guys to, if you learned something so far, y'all can go ahead and start contributing. But I want to bring Brian in here and I want to talk to him because this is very important. Brian, welcome back to the broadcast, bro. Thanks. Always good having you here. And man, what are your thoughts on this petition by Minister Lewis, this complaint filed in the Southern District by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan? We can't hear you, Brian. We can't hear you. Let's see if we can. Yeah, there we go. No sound. No sound. Maybe you may want to unplug your. Maybe you can unplug your deal there. You're gonna be right back in a minute. Okay. Well, look, while Brian gets queued up and he comes back in, if you guys appreciate what's been done here, y'all appreciate what I'm doing, make sure you go ahead and contribute to the Cash App. All right. We're gonna take a little break. We'll be right back with Brian. In the meantime, y'all see the Cash App right up there. If you feel like you learned something tonight, if you found something interesting, and we're not finished, but if something's interesting to you, you learned something, you've been entertained. I know I've been boring. This has been truly a law school class that, you know, it's that Tuesday, Thursday law school class. But if you learned something, man, make sure y'all contribute to the Cash App. We'll be right back in a few seconds, and hopefully Brian will be able to get his sound together. Y'all hit the number 1 button if you can hear me. Go ahead and hit the number 1 button now. Let me know you guys are in here like swimwear. In the meantime, we'll be right back. They don't shame rich female actresses, and sports figures for not giving back to the community, do they? But the minute a black man gets rich, what's the expectation? The minute a black man gets a little money in his pocket from some sort of contract, what are you gonna do for the black community? When was the last time the black community shamed some of these rich black actresses and sports figures for marrying out? Not hardly ever. The closest we saw was when Serena Williams and Halle Berry got married, and the only reason was because they married these broke men. And it's about money. When women go out and marry men of other races, the matriarchy sees that as a come up. Okay, now those white men are under our control. We have control over their resources and their children. Yeah! They squabbling out there now. Yeah!
People, when they just watching you talk, they only hearing you, they ain't listening.
Right.
There's a huge difference between hearing and listening and seeing and looking.
The broadcast. Brian, how's the sound going, man?
Good. Is it back? Am I back?
It's back. You back on, man. So
all right, sorry about that.
You got this $5 billion defamation suit, man. What do you think about this lawsuit, bro?
Oh, Dennis, I was very surprised at this, and for various reasons. One, you spoke about it earlier. You know, defamation has a statute of limitations of 1 year. So, you know, this has been going on for many years. And I was wondering what over the last year triggered the defamation side of it. But the color of law argument, I think is pretty good and interesting to go after the ADL for the way they are, depriving the Nation of Islam and Minister Farrakhan from doing what they do, in their organization. So I was very surprised. And as I was listening tonight, I'm thinking that this is probably something that Minister Farrakhan just had on this list of to-dos. He's up in age.
Right.
This is like this is
Yep.
like the chickens come home to roost type case. And if it survives dismissal, this is going to really dig deep into these organizations and the things they've done over the many years to attack him. But as a case, I have a lot of critique, on it for the complaint, but I can understand and appreciate what's happening.
So
Did I freeze?
So basically what Brian is saying is, and this is something that you all non-lawyers, somebody type non-lawyer in the chat room. If you file a lawsuit before you pass away, and defamation is one of those counts, the lawsuit can continue forward even after you're gone. You cannot file a defamation lawsuit for a person who's passed away. Unfortunately, people can say whatever they want to say about Kevin Samuels right now. They can call him all sorts of horrible names, but because he's passed away, his estate cannot file that lawsuit. Okay, so Minister Louis Farrakhan is 90 years old, and let's say this lawsuit goes on for the next 2 or 3 years and it gets appealed. He would be arguably, in his early to mid 90s before it's resolved. I don't think he cares whether he receives a dime or not. Right. I think his whole point for doing this is to set a precedent and to demonstrate that these folks who have been who've been shutting these artists and entertainers up and people like him up by calling them anti-Semitic, he's proving to them that this is just a trick so they're not held accountable for some of their actions. That's what I think this is about. Here's another thing. As I look at the placement of these allegations, what I see first is they went a long way to prove that there's a nexus between the ADL and the FBI to show that they are, by proxy, a government actor. And the first allegations are violation of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And then when you get down towards the bottom, that's when they throw the defamation in. Typically, any lawyer, when you start arguing a case, you're going to put your best arguments first.
Right.
You see? And then, yeah, mama, I don't know where that, I don't know who ate that pie. Mama, I wasn't even home. And if I was home, I was in my room sleep all day. I don't know nothing. You see what I'm saying? And if I wasn't sleep, then I just went to the bathroom one time and came back. I ain't even eat the whole pie in the first place. It wasn't me. You see those arguments? You put your best argument first. I wasn't here. So I think what they're trying to do is prove that the ADL and the FBI have a nexus. I think that's the strongest argument. So then people can then come behind that and build from there. What are your thoughts on that based on the buildup of this lawsuit?
I agree with all that you just said. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, in addition to what I just said, this is also an opportunity for Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam to put out there everything that's on their chest.
Right.
Think about this, Dennis. This is let me see how many pages, over 800 pages, almost 1,000 pages of documented allegations. I want to say accusations, but these are allegations. And Dennis, think about this. The minister and the nation is protected by litigation privilege for everything they've submitted here.
Right.
So these are things that they get to say that they typically can't just go out and say, because they would be sued perhaps under these same grounds and swallowed with legal fees of defending these same statements that they have couched as allegations. Right. So, I think this is, it's almost like it's almost like a treatise of how they feel they've been treated by the ADL for these many years. So that's something else. Look, and I agree, they're not doing it. This is not about money. I don't think this is about money at all. So I agree with you there. I think this is a big statement. This is a big case, and I hope it survives, dismissal. Again, there are a lot of procedural things that can happen here.
So here's the thing, Brian. I think, well, let me say this too, and I want to be the first one on record. I wouldn't be surprised if the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is sick. Let me say that again. I wouldn't be surprised if the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is sick and they know something and that he's close to death. I would not be surprised.
Well,
because this type of lawsuit just came out the blue. And either they filed it because it's an opportune time because of all the flack that Israel is getting right now, and people tired of people labeling them as anti-Semitic, and they know the jury pool is going to be more apt to listen to these people who have been using what should be a shield as a sword. They're using this anti-Semitic label to silence people. You know, and basically they're using it as a weapon. I wouldn't be surprised if he's sick, and this could be this could definitely be the last laugh for the minister.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I'll say this, Dennis. I mean, any black man that's 90 years old is close to death.
That's a good point.
Let's just be honest, and I don't want to speculate on sickness, but any person in general at 90, but a black man at 90 years old, we all know that he's much closer to death, even though we all are each day. But just from age itself, I think that's it. But again, Dennis, this
survives his death.
It will survive. It will. Absolutely, it will survive. And I think
you wouldn't be able to file it after he passed away because the cause of action expires with the person's life because you can't defame a dead person. So that's why that was the first thing I thought of. Go ahead, please go ahead.
Right. I agree. So, procedurally, I think if we come back in a few weeks, I think there's going to be a lot of activity here, or maybe a month. And, let's see where it survives. If this case survives motion practice and dismissals and appeals or whatever in between, I think it would be a groundbreaking case that will really change the landscape of how these organizations like ADL and others can, ascribe people as, anti-Semitic. And, that's a huge label now.
Right.
We've seen with the Israel-Palestine situation, students get their job offers at law firms pulled and more. Have you seen that, Dennis?
I have, and so I've been thinking about that. So merely saying somebody's a racist typically is not sufficient. It's not sufficient to rise to the level of slander or defamation or libel or defamation. However, with the word anti-Semitic, is it sufficient enough? And because you anti-black, we know what that is. Anti-Semitic, we know what that. Anti-Muslim, we know what that is. Anti-Arab. Calling somebody racist means, who are you racist against? But anti-Semitic, it has a certain, it generates a certain sort of punishment that goes along with it. So there's clearly a harm, even if there's no proof that you're anti-Semitic. And the fact that we have evidence, there's a videotape, there's statements where these Jewish folk say we use that to basically put people back on their heels when they say something we don't like. Not that they're racist. So that's saying it's an outright lie in the first place. What do you think about that? How does that? Because see, this is why I wanted to bring you in. If you say something that you know is a lie and it's going to have there's an intended effect, and that intended effect is going to cause these people to lose money and opportunities, and other people won't do business with. Is that defamation? Brian? Oh man, we lost Brian. Is it defamation per se? Hopefully Brian can come back in. You guys hit the number 1 button if you can hear me clearly. Brian. Oh yeah, we lost Brian. We'll see if we can get Brian back in. You guys hit the number 1 button if y'all can. Brian said he'll be back in a minute. Y'all hit the number 1 button, man. Let's try to. Yeah, he froze. Are y'all bored? Let me know if you're bored. I know this is boring. I think it's interesting. I think if anything, what this is going to do is it's going to make the Anti-Defamation League have to hesitate before they just start throwing anti-Semitic around. But anyway, Brian, I don't know if you heard my last
question. I did. I heard you.
Is labeling somebody anti-Semitic, is that enough?
Well,
based on the repercussions people suffer in this society for that. Go ahead. What are your thoughts?
If you look at the evidence, I think it is. And now we get into an argument that's really deep and sensitive, because we're going to be able to explore intellectually, but have you heard the term black people can't be racist?
I have. Yeah,
okay.
I have.
Okay. Well, I'm asking rhetorically, but what does that mean?
Well, I think there's a definition of racist, and it depends on your definition. There's a definition of racist that says racism is a system where one group of people control what other people can do. You can like black people and still be racist. You can like Latino people and still be racist, because you're in control of the systems, housing, food, military, all these sort of things. And you purposely keep this other group from having control and power over these systems. So now bigotry is when you think you're better than somebody. Prejudice is when you prejudge people. But racism is what you do when, hey, we're better than them. We're going to go ahead and do what's best for us, and we're going to discriminate them in these systems that help regulate life, housing, food, military, whatever. That's the definition. So by definition, they say black people have no power. We don't control these systems, and therefore we can't be racist. I don't know about that. I don't know. If I was an Uber driver and I had control over this little car, and I decided I'm only going to pick up black people, that would be kind of like, that would be racist, because I'm using what power I have on the level that I have, and I am purposely discriminating against a group because of their outside ethnicity. So that's my thoughts on it. But go ahead. But so theoretically,
I think so I agree with you. I think someone mentioned Joe E here. It comes down to power. And so as far as the racist remarks, now back to defamation, when we call someone an anti-Semite, well, what effect does it have? If I were to call Dennis right now racist or colorist, and colorist, for those who don't know, is when you think you're better than someone because of the tone of your skin, how dark, how light. That's not going to do anything to Dennis. I mean, it's not. I don't have the power to stop Dennis from having particular opportunities, nor is me calling Dennis that going to stop him, cause his clients to drop him, cause the bar to sanction him, calls the TV channels to blacklist him. Okay, now back to defamation. Defamation actually has a lot of layers, and Dennis went through some of them. You have slander, you have libel, but you also have defamation per se.
Right.
Okay. Now, defamation per se is when you don't even have to prove damages. Just saying that someone has AIDS, that someone is a felon, that someone kills someone. Those are examples. Or talking badly about someone's profession. If I were to write a op-ed and say Dennis is a horrible lawyer, he could sue me for defamation per se. He doesn't have to prove that he was damaged. Just those statements alone that were derogatory without truth would be winning arguments for him. So let's go back to anti-Semite. Recently, with the Israel and Palestine conflict, students have taught in favor of Palestine, and they have lost. These are law students at prestigious schools. They've lost their job offers. Some have lost their positions at organizations. And so I'm almost willing, they need to really make anti-Semite a defamation per se situation because of the strength of that statement. So, I think this case can be groundbreaking because a term like anti-Semite has so much power versus some of the cases you spoke about earlier about racism. To call someone racist, to call someone anything similar to racist does not have the same power as calling someone anti-Semite. Why is that? Once again, power. Who's in charge of media? Who's in charge of major law firms? Okay. who's in
But
charge
it's
of
anti-Semitic for you to say that.
it. Yeah.
Isn't that a trick
and that's horrible. So it's
Yeah.
anti-Semitic to say that. Well, I didn't. Well, first of all, I'm asking a rhetorical question. Okay, I'm fashioning it pretty safely. But if you were to say a certain organization, which I won't say, controls this, that, and the other, boom, you might be called anti-Semite, and that's a big problem. You can get it's a big problem.
So basically, it would appear, and I think that, and we're basically poking around the edges of what these lawyers are going to probably say. They're probably going to get up there and say, Judge, and the judge is Judge Cote, and she actually clerked for a Judge Weinman or Weinstein or something like that. And of course, she lives in New York, so she should be familiar with the Jewish culture and what they've had to endure. So she's going to be empathetic and very well understood about what's going on. All she has says, you know, if these lawyers come and say labeling somebody anti-Semitic is far beyond just labeling them racist.
Exactly.
Labeling them anti-Semitic has far-reaching effects. You label somebody anti-Semitic, they might not get a job. They'll lose their contract playing football, sports,
basketball,
and that's probably why they brought all. So that's probably why they brought all those names in there, because I thought it was odd that they would mention those basketball players and football players and entertainers. But now that you and I are talking, they're probably going to relate to that and say, this is such a powerful label.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful label that you got to be careful with it. You know, like this ain't the regular pop gun. This is a razor. This is a laser gun. And so by them doing that, they destroy people's careers. And they're going to point to the fact that when he tried to get the speaking engagement again in Morgan State, the ADL reached out to them and said, no, you can't have them. We're going to not do business with you. Been banned from certain colleges, banned from going to the United Kingdom, banned from so many different, missed out on business opportunities. The proof is obvious. It's what's the word when it's something that's so, was it res ipsa loquitur? It is obvious what the damage is caused when somebody is labeled anti-Semitic. I think that might be the argument, and that might help them survive.
Right.
12B6 motion to dismiss, failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. What are your thoughts, man?
Right, because typically calling someone or having an opinion of someone, especially when you are part of that group, like if I say, oh, you know, if you offend me and I say you're anti me or my people, you know, that's usually considered an opinion.
Right.
But with the anti-Semite term, it is much more stronger than that. And I think there's a distinction that needs to be legally made, possibly through a case like this, to show that that term is not just an opinion. It's like these other defamation per se terms that cause damage just on its own. I mean, you should not even have to prove damage. So this is going to be something that hopefully allows the case to survive.
It's like being labeled a sex offender or a pedophile or a rapist.
Yes,
that is one of those words. It's not something you can
shake off.
It's not something you can shake off. I think we got to the crux of it.
Right.
I don't know what's gonna happen, man. Well, I guess we'll have to see. You guys, hey, look, we already at my 2-hour mark, man. I'm not gonna hold this good brother up too much longer, Brian. I think this is the last defamation I want. I know more about the defamation now.
Right.
For the past 2 years than I want to know. But thank you guys. I appreciate everybody for coming through. Thank you so much for the contributions, man. Cody Marshall, Urban Eagle. Oh, yeah, I know it's time to go now. It is time to get the heck out of here, man. I gotta roll up out of here, but man, thank you guys so much. Shout out to everybody who contribute to the Cash App. Y'all make sure y'all call Brian if you got questions. Go harass him over on his page.
All right.
You know, shout out to, let me see, Mr. Mulkey. Thank you so much. Red Pill Steven, Expansion, Jerome. They ain't contribute to, I was talking too much tonight, man. They ain't give me no money. But other than that, man, this is Uncle D, man. I appreciate everybody. We're gonna go ahead and roll up out of here. Thank you, and I am out.